Hey you guys, it's Michelle and these are my media musings. Today we are talking about books. These are all the physical books that I've read that I own. Of course there's more. I've read, ebooks, library books, audiobooks. So if you want to see like the full list of books that I've read, then check out my Goodreads. So today we are talking best of, worst of, most surprising, most disappointing of 2024. Let's just get into it. Let's start with the worst books. So these are books that I've rated 2 stars. I rarely rate books 1 star because like if it's a 1 star, I'm probably not reading it. But these are the 2 stars. So the first one would be Single Dads Club. This I read from the library. I also read this as part of a book club. Now, I was excited to read this because at the time I was pregnant, and I'm like, oh, it's nice to read from a dad's perspective too. So I'm like, oh, a book about parenting. So I was here for it. However, the romance was not really hitting. Honestly, to be honest with you, like I don't even remember this book very much. I just know that I didn't really like it. It wasn't really giving what it was supposed to give. Let me see. The book is about hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay, so the book is about this guy, Rowan. He ends up being a single dad. He doesn't plan on like doing that, but somehow he ends up being a single dad. He moves to South Africa to be with his grandmother so that, they can together kind of raise his baby, give him the family he never had. Also, there's this girl, her name is Delilah. She comes from this prestigious family and she has like a lot of family trauma and things like that. So she's in this town and she's trying to like start fresh. She also has like an older brother who is very protective of her. And yeah, like the two cross paths and start to develop this little relationship. What I said in my review is that this book had a lot of potential, but that it was boring, that there wasn't a lot happening, and it's mostly like inner dialogue. You know how like the characters just be talking to themselves the whole time. What I did like about the book was that it did have the whole single dads thing, and they had like a single dads club, obviously, and I think like I wanted more of that, and it just didn't give me it. Like I wanted to hear more about these dads and what they were going through. The romance wasn't romancing, so at least give me something with this single dads club, but it just didn't hit. So yeah, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. The next one is The City We Became. So hear me out on this. I know some people, I guess, really like this book, really like this author. This was just not the genre for me, okay? This is supposed to be a fantasy, and, fantasy is kind of like hit or miss. I might enjoy young adult fantasy more. However, this was given sci-fi in a way, kind of. So I guess you could say it was fantasy. I don't know. Based in New York City, and so there are people, and each person kind of represents a different borough, and there's this thing that's kind of coming after them. It has like little tentacles. So if you can see that, that's kind of like the idea. Like I said, this just was not my genre. There was some good like action in it, and it was interesting, but a lot of it was also just like the people trying to find each other, and then once they found each other, they're like talking a lot about what they're going to do about this thing, and I don't know, I just didn't really get into it. The next one is Cherish Farrah. So I got this one from the Dollar Tree, and I had such high hopes because I really wasn't expecting to find any books by Black authors, but here we are. However, this is another one that I just didn't get it. Like I don't know, like the genre, like I think this is described as a horror. I did do a video about this. It's described as an adult horror, but I think it like features a 17-year-old, and she's going through a lot, like internally, you know. Are we all the way there is the question. So she has this best friend. Her name is Cherish. She's black, but she's adopted by a white family. That causes some interesting things to happen. This whole white family thing. Cherish is like ends up, her family like is well off. However, her parents end up like losing their jobs or something like that. And so they're having to move out of the home that Farrah grew up in, a really nice home. So Farrah's like feeling some type of way. She's like, I don't want to move, blah, 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 blah. So she ends up staying with her friend Cherish, and her parents are like, wanting her to come home. She's like, I ain't coming home. And there's just a lot of weird stuff that happens. There's a lot of like weird dynamic between the two best friends and this family. It's like Cherish is very dependent on Farrah, and Farrah thinks that she's like able to like manipulate her, you know. It's just weird. I can't even like describe it. Like, it was just a weird story. If you can read between the lines, if you're smarter than I am, you might get this book. But yeah, it's a no. It's a no. I had high hopes for it. I just didn't get it. So those are my 2 stars. Only 3 books. So that's pretty good. Now let's get to my best books, which are all my 5 stars, and there is quite a few, so we're gonna get through it. The first one is Amari and the Night Brothers. Love this one. This is a middle grade one. Simple, easy to read, but fun. It is considered fantasy. So again, like with the fantasy, just I need it simplified. Like I need the kiddie versions. So it's about this girl, Amari. She goes to this, like, I would say it's probably a like white school. She's being picked on by the other girls. At some point she gets kicked out, and so she's got to find her next move. Also, her brother is missing. He's been missing for a while, and everybody kind of seems to think that he must have got involved in some gang activity or something, but obviously his family knows that that's not the case. And so one day this briefcase shows up on Amari's doorstep, and it ends up being like a message from the brother and an invitation into this secret society that the brother is a part of. So that starts us off on Amari getting invited to this place, and she kind of has to go through these series of tests and trials to kind of prove herself to be, in this academy. And I guess when you go to this place, you get to kind of choose which area you want to be in. And she wants to be in like the most popular one, so the most competitive one. And she wants to do that because that's the one her brother is in. Being in that will help her find her brother. Like, she's trying to find her brother, so she's trying to figure out what happened. Obviously, there are villains and things like that are after her, and after the whole like organization and things like that. So it's fun. I would just say that it is a fun story, takes you on a journey. I really enjoyed reading about Amari going through those different tests and different things that she had to do, and meeting the different people. And she's still being picked on at this new place, but it be like that. But yeah, it was fun. I definitely recommend it for any, young kids, or if you're like into fantasy and you need like a kiddie version. That is a really good one. It is a part of the series, so I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. The next one is, in no particular order, by the way, What's Done in... Girl, I thought my camera was about to die. What's Done in Darkness. I picked this up at maybe Ollie's, and no, Books A Million. And I also have the sequel too down here. I was just very surprised. Like, it was good. So this is about a girl who, She's in a sorority. Her and her friends, they're in a sorority, and she's dating this guy. And this girl comes along, and this girl, she is a legacy of the sorority. Like her mom is like holds a very high position in the sorority or whatever. And so she's, her mind is like, I got this, I don't really need to like kiss ass or anything. And she's very arrogant, and she's trying to get at my girl's man, okay, the main girl. And the main girl, what's her name? Jade. Wait, is this the right one? What's Done in Darkness? No, it's Will Never Tell. Goodness. Okay. Will Never Tell. Obviously, the covers are very similar, but it's Will Never Tell. And the girl's name is Phoebe, and the man stealer's name is Chandra. So Chandra is trying to get at Phoebe's man, and Phoebe is not having it. Her and her friends, her sorority sisters, they are trying to like put the girl in her place. They like, with the whole hazing thing, but they take it a little too far. You feel me? And Chandra, she ain't stand a chance, baby. She did not stand a chance. So more and more things are coming to the surface, and the girls are kind of having to scramble and figure out, what they're going to do. Are they going to stick together and stick to their story? Some people going to fall off and crack under the pressure. It is just very good. It's about 300 pages. So pretty short, and it's a pretty fast pace, I would say. Like it's good from start to finish. I remember like not being able to put this down. Like it is so good. The sequel as well is pretty interesting. Again, a lot of crazy stuff happens. But yeah, the first one definitely so good. The next one is Brown Girl Ghosted. Obviously, I got this from Ollie's, and this one is fun. This is a young adult. It is definitely giving like spooky ghost vibes. So definitely read this in October if you pick it up. It is about Violet. She's 16 years old, and she's a part of this like ancestry where they are, what do they call them? Yeah, I couldn't pronounce it. IDEO. They're like these supernatural warrior queens or whatever. They're putting Violet through like these different tests to like, I guess like prepare her for whatever, build her up to be like, I guess the next warrior queen or whatever. And she's not feeling it. Like she don't like that. Like some of the tests are like life threatening. And so she's like, whoa, this is too much. One of her classmates ends up being murdered, and she is tasked with figuring out how she died. And so the two, I want to say that this girl was kind of mean to Violet. She was kind of like a mean girl. So the two are going to have to kind of work together, get along, and figure out what happened to her. So this was really fun. I just remember there being like like bonfires and corn mazes. Like it definitely gets fall. There's good character development in this. Like the mean girl, she goes through some things that makes her realize that you can't be mean. Like you mean. Like what's really going on with you? And then also our main character, she grows. She kind of stands up for herself. A little bit more. So I really liked it. I would say check it out if you haven't. The next one is The Hive. This one was so good. Like I came across this on audiobooks.com. I had got like what's it called? A free trial. Their subscription service is pretty interesting because you get like VIP perks, and then it's like you get VIP perks, and then you also get like additional things to where like you can get 2 for 1 sometimes. And then you also get to like pick one from like a special list or something. I really like it. I'm not sure, like compared to Audible, I had that years ago, and it's just, you just get your one book. So I don't know if it's changed, but I do like audiobooks.com and like how they kind of do their subscription. Anyways, The Hive is about this girl. It's based in, I can't remember, but the accents, it's based in London or the UK or something like that. No, maybe it's the UK. I don't know. Canada, maybe. But it's about this girl, and she starts dating this guy. He's like a famous boxer or something like that. And, she's thinking everything's cool. They're falling in love. Their relationship is growing. They're talking about marriage and things like that. And then he ends up cheating on her. This, I will say, trigger warning for child loss or miscarriage. So I know that's kind of a spoiler, but get into it, okay? So good. The girl, she thinks everything is cool. The guy ends up cheating on her and doing some really, really foul things. And it's like she's made to think that she is crazy. Like the guy is definitely like gaslighting her, leading her on and all these things. So eventually, like she finds out like what really happened to her, and she just like, because of all the stuff that happened to her, like it's just like she's slowly like losing her mind as the story goes on, and like eventually she reaches her breaking point, and she ends up basically getting on live. So the guy, his fan base is called The Hive. And throughout this time, The Hive is giving their opinions on their relationship and things that happen. So she gets on live and she asks The Hive, should this man live or die? Like, based on all the stuff that's happened, should I let this man live or should I kill him? And that's not a spoiler because that's pretty much the opening of the book. It's kind of like, they lay out where we're at and then they kind of go back to the beginning. Like, here's how we got here type of thing. So I really like this. I'm surprised that it's like not more people have talked about. I have not heard anybody talk about this book. Get into it, you guys. It was good from start to finish. All the things that were happening. I really, really enjoyed it. Like, I don't have a physical copy, but I'm going to put that on my wish list to get it because that's a book that I would definitely revisit in the future. I'd love to actually read it physically and see like how it's hidden. But yeah, check it out. The next one I have is a holiday one. It is Christmas at Starbucks. It is a short, little book, and it's cute to get you into the Christmas spirit. Child, my baby is awake. All right, don't mind my little man here. Where was I? Oh yeah, Christmas at Starbucks. So it is so cute for a Christmas story, a Christmas novella. It is young adult, so it's about these college kids. They cross paths or whatever, and they go about their lives. They're looking. They're like, oh yeah. They go about their lives. Somehow they meet back up on Christmas. Each one of them, for some reason, they're not, with their family for Christmas. So the girl, she works at Starbucks, I think. Yeah, she works at Starbucks. The guy happens to walk in and they spend Christmas together. It's really, really sweet. Just a sweet, cute little novella to get through and put you in the holiday spirit. I know obviously we are past the holiday spirit at this point, or the holiday time at this point. But, put it on your list for next year. It was good. It was cute. Definitely got me in the Christmas spirit. The next one was The Color Purple. This is my first time reading it. I put it on my list of books that I wanted to read for 2024 because I hadn't read it. Last year, the musical came out with Taraji and Danielle. So I really was like, I need to put that on my list. So I read it and, obviously classic. And it's interesting because like a lot of people don't like the movie, I guess, or they're like, this movie's so sad or whatever. And I get that. But the movie, like the women, how the women like look out for each other. That's what I really, really like about it. Reading the book, like the differences between the book and the movie, I was able to get some context on certain things. The book has a lot more of the sister in Africa. So like her, like how they got to Africa, just their time throughout being in Africa and how they ended up back in the States and stuff was interesting. There's some things that happen in the movie that don't happen in the book. So that was interesting. I think it's just one of those books that like you just gotta read. It's a classic. And it wasn't too bad. Like the structure of it is basically kind of like letters. In the beginning, Celie, she addresses her like letters to God. She's like, "Dear God," and she talks about whatever's going on. And her sister, she obviously addresses her letters to Celie. She's like, "Dear Celie, this is what happened in Africa." Da 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 da. So yeah. And did you know that The Color Purple was a part of a series? Reading the synopsis, like, it's not like a continuation of the story necessarily. There are different main characters with different, stories going on. But I think some of the old characters, like I think Celie and Suge, like they do appear in the other stories. So, that's interesting. But yeah, it's a great book. I kind of want to collect the different covers. Like I was looking through, I do not like the current cover with like the cartoon. Like I don't like when like they have like a cartoon and it doesn't have their face. I don't like that necessarily. I thought about maybe collecting the different covers, like going on Etsy and stuff. But yeah, the last 5-star that I gave out, which actually I read this earlier in the year, was A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I really enjoyed that one. I didn't expect to. So it was about this girl. She is from this prestigious family. They're sisters, and they're all in this what's the funeral home business. And they each own like a funeral home or whatever, except for her. And she's kind of like the goof off of the family, the Tamara Campbell of the family. Everybody's just like, when are you going to get your life together? But she's like, I don't want to get into the funeral business. I like flowers. I want to get to the flower business. And I think they're in Atlanta. And so she ends up meeting this woman who is in New York, and she like owns this brownstone or whatever, and has this space for like a little shop. And so just everything just works out to where the girl can are y'all hearing my baby? Everything works out to where the girl can stay at the place and have a little shop. And so she goes for it. Like she's not sure if it's going to work out, but she's really like going for her dream. So while she's in New York, she ends up meeting this guy, and this guy has this kind of, so it's kind of like magical a little bit, the book. The guy has this thing going on to where he can't die. So he's been around for a little bit. And it's also a musical, I would say. That's why a love song for Ricky Wilde. So there's musical elements in it as well. So the guy, he's from, back way back in the days. We find out how he dies and stuff, how he ended up with this curse. Them kind of getting together, they kind of fall for each other, and they have to figure out how to lift this curse by a certain time or whatever. I like that it had the historical elements, I guess, like that it was this guy from way back in the day, so we got a little bit of that. And I did end up liking the magical parts too. I know this was like hit or miss for some people. Like some people, I guess, maybe didn't like it, but I have heard a lot of people say that they enjoyed this. So if you haven't checked this out and it sounds interesting to you, then definitely give it a try. So moving on to the most disappointing. The first one I have is The Davenports right here. This book was hyped up, I feel like, and historical fiction or historical romance. People were saying that, it gives Black Bridgerton. And when I read it, it just did not give that to me. It didn't give Bridgerton to me. This book I feel like is more modern than the Bridgerton one. I don't know. I don't know the dates and stuff, but it wasn't giving that. It wasn't giving that to me. Like, it was giving more modern. The automobile is starting to come around. So, yeah. There are two sisters, and then there's a girl who was technically the maid, but she was also a good friend of the sisters. So it's like telling each one of their, and then there's also the best friend of one of the sisters. So there's 4 girls, and so it tells, each girl gets their own chapters and stuff. So in that way, it was just not as interesting to me. It's a little repetitive to me. When I read romances and things, I'm expecting to really feel it. Like, this book did not make me feel the feels. It was just okay, It wasn't like terrible. I didn't have I didn't hate my reading experience, but I gave it a 3. These are books that I gave 3. They were just okay. Nothing to really write home about. Hey, little man. Hey. The next one is Who's That Girl by Eve. I did a video on this too. It was just okay. Again, I feel like it shouldn't be that disappointing to me, because I feel like this is just how memoirs be. It's rare that memoirs kind of get deep enough for me. Like, if you're a fan of the person, then you probably know everything. I guess if I could compare it to Will, same thing. Like, if you're a fan of Will, you probably know most of what's in that book. However, at least Will was entertaining. Obviously, I read the audiobook, so it was, I read the audiobook for both of them. So Will was just a lot more entertaining, included a lot more musical elements. It was Will's book was like a production. It was like a show. With Eve, it was just okay. It was just boring. I don't know. There wasn't enough details, and there wasn't enough details on things that I wanted to know about. Especially for me, I just became a mother. So, I would have really liked to hear about her becoming a mother. And, I mean, she touches on it a little bit. It was just average. It was okay. It was nothing to write home about, nothing too exciting about it. It was just an average memoir. If you're a fan, you would probably, enjoy it just for the nostalgia, for the stories and stuff, but there's nothing too deep about it. The last one was the Unconditional series, which is this Brianna Cole. I have the second book here. Well, actually, I'll say not the whole series necessarily. If you like dark romance, kidnapper stuff, or domestic violence type stuff, then maybe you would like it. But once I got to the 3rd book, it was too much for me. It was too much. I did a video on this as well. I could not continue to read it. The things that were happening was just taking it a little too far for me. And that's why it was disappointing. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to spoil it. But I guess to give you an idea of the first book, our girl, I forget her name, she is just all about that money. She just wants that money, that bling. And so she's dating this guy who gives her that. The guy is married, and she knows that he's married, and she's cool with it until the man asks her to marry him. And she's like, what? Aren't you already married? And so obviously, we get into this whole polygamy thing. But, everything is not as it seems. There's some jealousy going on. It's a mess. I don't want to say too much. Go to my other video to see maybe more about that. But I was disappointed because while it's good and interesting, you know, and crazy stuff happens. So you get into it and you're able to get through it fairly quickly. I was disappointed because I just couldn't go. I just couldn't finish it. It just got to be too much. And yeah, I'm sad about that. Like, it didn't have to. Yeah, yeah. If you're into that, I would say look into it because like you will be entertained for sure. But if you can only stomach so much, maybe skip it. So most surprising books on my list. I already talked about A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I was surprised because I really wasn't expecting to like that book as much as I did, and for it to have all like the different things in it. I also already talked about The Hive. Again, just wasn't expecting it, and for it to be so like it's a full story. Like some of the books that I read, they're just boring. Like which one was I saying was boring? Well, like the Davenports. Like it's okay, but it's just I don't know, it's just boring. The Hive was interesting, There's more going on, more action, more. Hey, you talking? What? What you got to say? So yeah, but moving on. Something I haven't talked about is the Blessing series by Beverly Jenkins. So let me tell you how I got into this. So I bought this book right here, Second Time Sweeter, and I read it and I didn't realize it was part of a series. I think I realized it eventually or when I got started reading it, but I just kept reading it. But this book was the 8th or ninth book in an 11 book series, about to be 12 books. She's coming out with a new book in 2025. So I was just like, okay. But once I read it, when I read it, I'm like, it's okay. But I was interested. I was curious about like, what's the context of this? You know, what's going on? So I went back to the first book. I've been listening to them on audio, and I'm up to like the 10th book already. I just been, going through them and going through them. And it is actually a really good series. For there to be like 10, 11, 12 books, you know, every book is not going to hit or whatever. But let me tell you what it's about. So this woman named Bernadine, she was married to this rich man or whatever. And I guess he cheated on her. I don't know. But she ends up divorcing him. Hey, Lemmy. Hi. Yeah. She ends up divorcing the man and getting a lot of money. She becomes very, very rich. And so she's like, Lord, what do I use my riches on? I've been blessed. How can I be a blessing? She comes across this town that's for sale. The town it's been struggling. It did have, it was like very popular. I guess it's a historical town to where like I guess one of the first towns that like black people created or whatever. But at this point, it's a really really small town in Kansas called Henry Adams, and it's on its last leg. And so the mayor puts the town up for sale. Bernadine sees it, she buys it, and she moves there, and is on this quest to revitalize the town. So there's that going on in the series. She pays for new buildings. She pays for the town doesn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that, so she makes that happen. And pretty much anything that like comes their way, any legal thing or any kind of enemies, that come their way, Bernadine is able to handle it based on the money she has or the people that she knows in high places. So that's fun. Bernadine is one of the people like, if she was a real person, like you would want to know her. The only gripe though that I have is that on the book, they has this woman right on the book, on the first book, and it makes you think like that's Bernadine. But if you read it, Bernadine is a, plus size woman. So why they got this skinny woman on the cover? It's giving very much stock images. Another thing that I really love about this this little series is that Bernadine wants to bring foster kids to the town, like kids who are orphans, kids who are in the system, and basically the different families in the city adopt a kid. And just hearing like the different kids' stories, like some books focus on, different kids and their background and how they ended up how they ended up. One girl, she was so traumatized that she would not speak. So one of the books explores that a little more. One of the kids, he was a car thief. He wants to like drive for NASCAR or whatever, but he was stealing cars, and so they talk about him. One of the little kids, he grew up with his grandmother, and so he wants to be a preacher like he's a little kid, but he dresses in suits and stuff, and he wants to be a little preacher. So there's these different kids, and the books kind of explore that. They talk about the adults too. There's this matriarch of the town. Her name is Tamar. She don't play no games. So it's a fun little series. Like if you just want to get into it, I definitely say listen to it, unless you just want to read it or whatever. But definitely, listen to it as you're doing stuff around the house. And eventually you'll start to fall in love with the characters, and you'll want to hear more about how they are dealing with things. There's some crazy stuff that happens. There's this man, and he has a hog, and he's obsessed with the hog, and the hog just be causing all kinds of chaos. And yeah, there are different like little villains. I wouldn't say it's like the most complex or the most deep stories. At the end of each book, the pretty much the conflict gets resolved. The villain gets, put in their place. Some storylines carry over, but for the most part, it's just like fun. I like to refer to it as the stories. How like your grandmother would be watching the stories. This is what I would call this. I'm listening to my stories. So check it out. The last one I have on my list is this one, Ties That Tether. And the reason this is the most surprising is because this is a swirl romance. And I do not really like the swirl romances. I'm a black love girl, but this one was pretty good, I would say. I really like the cover. You can see it. It is about Aziri, and she promised her family that she would marry a Nigerian man. She's Nigerian. And so ever since she made this promise, her mom has been setting her up on dates with Nigerian men. However, the men are trash. They're arrogant, they're entitled. They are very traditional to where like they want her to be cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids. And, she has a career. She's a boss girl, and she don't plan on giving up. Like, of course she wants family, but she don't plan on giving up her career. So the dates and stuff are not working out. She ends up meeting this white man named Raphael. I think he might be Italian or something. They have like this one night stand, and they go their separate ways. And then eventually the man shows up at the girl's job. So, they're obviously forced to see each other. They're even forced to work together, and romance ensues. There's a lot of, am I turning my back on my family? How is my family going to deal with this? The family is not very happy, or certain people in the family are not very happy that she's dating this white man. Yeah. One of my most surprising, because I just didn't expect to like it. Once I found out that it was swirl, I was just like, I don't know about this. But since I bought it, I'ma read it. And surprisingly, I ended up liking it. Oh, I missed one. I missed one of my best. Girl, mom brain, I guess. Yeah, I totally skipped this one. Ace of Spades. So good. This is about two black kids. They go to this white school, and it's kind of giving a Pretty Little Liars, where somebody's texting them and trying to ruin their lives or whatever. It takes you on this whole ride of like trying to figure out who is out to get these two, and when it's revealed, you know, it's just craziness, like the crazy, like it's systematic racism, you know, that's involved in this. It's good. One of my favorites. If I could put, I would say that this was my favorite book of the year, if I had to say. Let me just check really quick. It's between this one and the Love Song for Ricky Wild. But I will just go ahead and say that this was my favorite. This is best cover for me as well. Not it being my favorite and my best cover. I just like how it's, you know, like a card, Ace of Spades, you know, and that you can flip it either way and, you know, still get a good view of it. So yeah, definitely my favorite cover. So yeah, those were my best and worst and most surprising and most disappointing and my favorite book of 2024. I'm so excited. I will come back to you with some goals that I have for 2025 and a list of what I want to read. But we had I would say I read over 40 books, read and listened to over 40 books. So I would say that I accomplished my goal for 2024, and I'm excited to get into 2025. So let me know in the comments if you read any of these books or if you agree with like anything I was saying with like my best, my worst. I will see you in the next video.